Hi, I have here my two bench power supplies, Keysight E36312A and Rigol DP832. Rigol here is quite common among hobbyists because it's quite affordable. I paid around 400 quid for that one. And as we know, Rigols are also hackable, so you can add some extra options by using the hacking if you don't mind doing that. So yeah, it's a good option for hobbyists. Just if you buy it second hand, don't buy too old unit because it used to have quite a lot of bugs that have been now fixed. Keysight here, I actually won that in a Keysight power supply contest. So that's why I have two completely different power supplies. It's in a way a bit more refined. It looks a bit nicer, bigger display, quite a lot of features, but it also costs 3 times more than Rigol. Keysight also has a lot lower current output than Rigol, as Rigol can give 3 amps in the higher voltage outputs. Keysight is only 1 amp. The good thing is why I'm actually using it most of the time instead of Rigol is that it's really quiet, it's almost silent. At the moment I'm working on a project that I need to use both of these power supplies, so I actually need 5 individual outputs. And I know that both of these power supplies support some kind of trigger inputs and outputs, so I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to control the outputs of one power supply using the other. So just have one outputs on and they would all go on in both power supplies. Both of these power supplies have quite good connections, so both of them have USB and LAN. The Keysight here also has the GPIB, and then we have the Sense connectors here in the back, and then is the digital I/O. Here's the Keysight one and here's the Rigol one. So that's what we're gonna use for the trigger input and output. Both power supplies also came with these connectors to use in the rear panel I/O. So these are just screw terminals what you then can snap in the connector. To use the trigger function, I made this simple I/O cable, so just connecting one of the GPIO pins and common pin together between two power supplies. Alright, so now we have the I/O cable on. Let's turn these power supplies on. Let's see which one is faster. Rigol for sure is at least a lot louder. It's a bit quieter now, but Keysight is almost silent. Both power on pretty quickly, so no big difference there. One thing I noticed immediately is in my Rigol menu, there is a trigger that says uninstalled. So the triggering in Rigol is actually an option you need to buy. But, well, as many of us know, there is a way to hack these power supplies. So I think that's gonna be the first thing I'm gonna do now. Fast forward a bit, and after typing a couple of really long serial numbers, I now have all the options except the serial port, which I think I won't use. So now the trigger should be functional. I have actually no idea where the trigger settings are in the Keysight one. On-off delays, output inhibit, I have no idea what it means. Output list, I think here we can maybe sequence the outputs. This one has quite a lot of features, but it's not the most intuitive to use, at least if you're not known to the terms. what they use here. IO config, digital IO. We're using pin 1. Trigger output. I think that's what I want to do. I want to use this Keysight as a master and Rigol as a slave. Couple off on. I really need to read the manual a little bit and see what's going on here. I looked at the Keysight manual and there's a lot you can do with the output. So first of all, you have this output list. You can generate some sequence, like first it goes to 1 voltage, and then after some time it increases the voltage or does whatever, and then you can add triggers in between, and here you can have delays between the outputs. You can set up like a common triggers. If you have similar Keysight supplies, you can just nicely synchronize them all together, and so there's a lot of fancy features, but let's see if I can make it work with the Rigol. I will create a simple output sequence so that it will be easier to follow what's going on. So I will just put quite long delays here that they would be visible. There's on delays and off delays. So yes, they are going on and off in sequence. It's just a bit confusing that all these lights will just lit up all at once. So if I turn on now, you can see 1, 2 and 3, but just all the lights go on immediately, but they go on in a sequence, and the same going off, 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 off. Next I'm trying to make the trigger output when I turn the outputs on. It would be probably useful to have scope now on monitoring the trigger, but I will see if I can do it without. So it's pin 1 I have connected now. So you can use this for all kind of fault conditions, and I think trigger out probably. I think couple on off are related if you synchronize several of these identical power supplies together. Pin 1 trigger output positive, and okay, here I can control it. So let's go to the Rigol now. Rigol and trigger settings. I'm using the D0. I want to control, well, I have these 2 channels now. Trigger type. I think the Keysight is giving 10 microsecond pulse on a trigger output, so I could trigger on rising edge. Response. I probably need to have a toggle here then, if the pulse is the same. Like, it would be good to trigger on logic level, but I'm not sure how the Keysight works. Let's try this. Enable. So let's try if something happens when I trigger it here manually. No, nothing happens. Okay, so I took my oscilloscope to see, hopefully, the pulses there and what kind of pulse do I get, if I get anything. Let's go back to I/O. I'm not sure if I click here, do I actually get the pulse or not? I don't see anything. I don't know, what is this listing? Or how does it start or triggers? Hey, now I get something in the scope. And by the way, my Rigol is now also turning on. So, something is happening now. If I now put the Rigol trigger on level, I don't know what happened now. Anyway, I need to get this trigger now still somehow connected to the outputs when I turn the outputs on. So I don't think it's still the I/O is the answer to that. Still need to get the trigger somehow. Okay, I spend a bit more time on the Keysight manual, and kind of looks like that if you want to use the trigger function, you need to use this list, whatever it is. And in order to run the list, you need to go to these menus and press these buttons, or use another trigger to trick the list, which is a kind of waveform thing that you can add steps with different voltages and currents, and then add the triggers there. So it doesn't really sound like something I want to do now. So what I'm gonna try now is to use the couple on off. This is meant to be used with other identical power supplies, that you could basically turn the outputs on and off on any of these and it controls them all. So again, it's not really well documented what's actually happening with these signals. So it's for daisy chaining a couple of these power supplies. So I hope I could make that one to work with the Rigol. I will turn the trigger off on the Rigol now that I can check what's happening in this Keysight one. I don't see anything happening. Wonder if I need to have here these on-off coupling settings. I also don't know actually what to do now when I have this sequence on. Normally it's like if you put the coupling on, you can, I don't know, you turn on channel 1 and all the channels turn on. Well, it's still following the sequence. I don't know what the couple actually does. I still don't see anything happening on the scope. I played with the trigger settings a little bit, so if I change the settings in Rigol, enable the trigger input here, it's actually, I can turn the Keysight on. So this couple thing is actually, it's bi-directional, because if you have several Keysight power supplies, you can use any of those to control, so there's no like a master-slave connection. So when I'm toggling these things, I can actually somehow connect both things on and off, and I don't really know yet how. So it seems like the Rigol is toggling like every second pulse. So I'm getting a negative pulse every time I turn this thing on. I guess that's a couple on. If I would couple off, I assume to get a pulse every time I turn the outputs off. Yes. It kind of sounds like I could only turn the Rigol either on or off. I think what I may need to do is to use actually two digital IOs in the back. Use one as an on couple and one as an off couple. So one turns the Rigol on and one turns it off. I think that's gonna work. So yeah, I will give it a try. Okay, now my IO cable has one more wire here, so it's using 2 pins. Let's see what happens. Okay, so now I'm gonna use pin 1 on Keysight for couple on, pin 2 for couple off. Then on Rigol, 1 is gonna be output on, and pin 1, the second pin, is gonna be for both channels, but it's output off. And enable. And it works. Finally. There's probably other ways to do this as well. If you need IO pin for something else, now I'm using 2 for this. The simplest way, of course, would be to use just one, and the logic level high is on and low is off, but I don't know. Maybe possible to do it somehow, or maybe not. I'm just wondering if I think my output delay sequence, no, at least the off one works. Yeah, it still works, but obviously for Rigol it doesn't work now. If you were using 2 Keysight ones, you could use this delay sequence and everything, but I don't think I will know that. I will need that. So I guess mission accomplished for now. One more thing I noticed in the settings, so you need to have this channel couple on at least for one of the channels, otherwise it will not send those couple signals. Yet another thing I only noticed a couple of weeks after I filmed the other videos. So here I'm turning the outputs on, and after a while the output 1 just turns off by itself. I thought my power supply is broken, but actually it turned out that it is the coupling setting which has been on, although I haven't been using the Rigol supply, only the Keysight one now. So there's some kind of odd glitch or small spike which is enough to actually trigger, which turns the output 1 off. After a while I turned the coupling on channel 1 off, and I haven't seen this odd behavior since that, so I'm quite sure my power supply is fine, and it's just that. So it's good to turn off the coupling when you're not using this dual supply trigger. Here you see just one off on its own.